Here is a simple truth that you might not want to hear. Your job is already doomed. You've been told that AI is just a tool, that it will make you faster, or that it will only take the boring work. That is a dangerous lie, and the evidence is already here. This isn't just about factory workers or truck drivers anymore. The crisis is coming for the people who thought they were safe: programmers, writers, artists, and engineers. If you don't understand the economics of what's happening right now, you are making a fatal mistake. Right now, a cold fear is settling over the global workforce. We are watching companies, one after the other, announce massive projects using artificial intelligence that will replace human tasks, not just repetitive physical tasks, but thinking tasks. The question everyone is whispering is simple: will AI destroy my job? The history of progress tells us that new technology always creates more jobs than it destroys. But what if this time the speed and scope of the revolution are so extreme that history fails us? What if the system collapses before new jobs can even be invented? We're going to walk through the only economic theory that actually explains this moment. Look at the two times in history when this fear was just as real and explain the one fatal choice we face right now. The central challenge we face is one of scale and speed. In every previous technological shift, from the steam engine to the internet, the destruction part of the change was slow enough that the creation part could keep up. A farmer might need a decade to save up for a tractor, giving farmhands time to move to the city and learn a new trade. The transition was painful, sure, but it was staggered. The pain was spread out over a generation. Families had time to plan, to save, and to get their kids into schools that taught new skills. AI, however, is a technology that replicates, learns, and deploys at the speed of light. An entire team of graphic designers or code reviewers can be replaced in a single overnight software update. This radical, instantaneous nature is why this moment feels like a terrifying crisis. It is a compressed version of every industrial revolution we have ever seen. The change that used to take 40 years now takes 4 months. The human ability to adapt and retrain is being overwhelmed by the speed of the machine as deployment. This speed is the true, urgent source of the modern fear. The challenge is this: can we manage an economic shift that might happen over 5 years instead of 50? To answer that, we have to look back at the original moments of industrial terror and see what the survivors did right. We have to understand the patterns that hold true, even when the technology is wildly different. The ghost of the Luddite crisis. Let's start with one of the most famous examples of technology-driven panic, the Luddites. This wasn't some minor protest. It was a full-blown social and industrial crisis in the heart of the developing world. Imagine you are living in England around the year 1811. Your entire life, your survival, depends on your skill as a textile worker. Maybe you operate a hand loom weaving cloth. This is a trade passed down for generations. You are a craftsman. You have a skill that took years to perfect, and it is a skill that puts food on your family's table. Your community respects you for this deep, difficult knowledge. Then these new machines show up: the power loom, the spinning frame. They are fast, tireless, and they don't need to eat. They can do the work of 10 skilled workers for the cost of 1 person to watch the machine. The factory owner doesn't need to pay you for your skill. They just need to pay a minimum wage worker to oil a few gears. The price of cloth drops dramatically, the factory owners get incredibly rich, and suddenly your highly valuable generational skill is worth nothing. You are facing destitution, the threat of starvation, and the complete humiliation of losing your craft. Your entire social standing is gone. The Luddites were not anti-technology. They were skilled workers facing an economic collapse. Their response was direct and violent. They decided to fight the machines. They put on masks, snuck into factories at night, and smashed the machines with sledgehammers, believing they were under the command of a mythical leader named Ned Love. They believed that if they could destroy the source of the problem, their old way of life could be saved. They were fighting for their livelihoods, their dignity, and the stable order they had always known. It was an industrial war. But here is the unavoidable lesson from the Luddite crisis. They were doomed to fail. The economic forces driving the change were simply too powerful. The new cheap cloth was better, faster, and far more profitable for the merchants and factory owners. Trying to hold back the tide of technology is like trying to stop a massive river with your bare hands. It's impossible. You can smash one machine, but 3 more will be built tomorrow. The profits were simply too great to ignore, and the global demand for cheap textiles was insatiable. No amount of organized violence could overcome the iron logic of the market. The fatal mistake of the Luddites was that they focused their anger on the symptoms, the machines, instead of the cause, the economic system that failed to support them during the transition. The new jobs were coming. People would be needed to build and fix the machines, transport the new abundant goods, and work in the new urban economies, but the Luddites themselves, the skilled hand weavers, were often too old, too specialized, or too broken by poverty to get those jobs. They were displaced and often deeply impoverished. The transition was brutal. The new great prosperity came, but not for them. They were the casualties of progress. This brings us to a crucial point about innovation. It is never painless. And to understand that pain and that potential, we have to talk about the core theory that governs this entire process. Creative destruction, the engine that eats itself. The economist Joseph Schumpeter gave us the perfect name for this phenomenon, creative destruction. The idea is simple. Capitalism is not a calm, steady growth engine. It is a constantly churning, violent process that tears down old structures to make room for new ones. It is a perpetual revolution from within, continuously destroying the old and building the new. The destruction part is obvious. The steam engine destroys the need for sail power. The steel skyscraper destroys the need for traditional brick and mortar high-rise construction. The iPhone destroys the need for the physical camera, the separate GPS device, and the paper map. Now, let's look at our second historical example, which is far more dramatic than the Luddites and better illustrates the scope of total systemic destruction. This is an example of an entire powerful industry facing complete extinction. In the late 1800s, before the car, every American city depended on a massive, complex, and highly profitable industry, the horse and buggy ecosystem. Think about the entire network required for a world without cars. You needed thousands of blacksmiths to shoe horses, hundreds of livery stables to house and rent horses, massive feed supply companies to grow and transport hay and oats, specialized veterinarians to care for the animals, master saddle makers, and millions of professional carriage drivers. Millions of people made their living entirely within this horse-based industry. Their livelihoods were stable, respected, and central to the economy. Then came the cheap, mass-produced Ford Model T. This was not just an improvement. It was a total replacement. Within 2 decades, that entire ecosystem suffered a complete and total collapse. The entire economic structure of the transport industry was utterly destroyed. The blacksmith shop, once a fixture of every town, went out of business. Horse feed companies closed their doors. The job of a carriage driver went from a valued lifelong profession to a job that simply did not exist anymore. This destruction was fast, comprehensive, and caused widespread economic ruin for those who were too invested in the old ways. This was a far greater disruption than the Luddites because it was a total industry replacement. It was a true economic crisis for everyone whose livelihood was tied to the horse. It was an industrial fatal event. But here is where the creative part of the theory kicks in, the part that saves us from total doomsday. For every job lost in the horse industry, dozens of new undreamed of jobs were created in the automobile ecosystem. Instead of blacksmiths, you needed specialized automobile mechanics, a whole new trade with new tools and new training. Instead of stables, you needed gas stations requiring attendants, builders, and massive oil drilling industries. Instead of dirt paths, you needed civil engineers to design highways, sign makers, and government planners to manage the new traffic. You needed factory workers to assemble cars in vast, new-scale factories, glass manufacturers for windshields, rubber companies for tires, insurance agents for drivers, and sign painters for billboards. The new industries were vastly larger, created immensely more wealth, generated millions of new, better-paying jobs, and improved life for billions of people through faster travel and trade. The destruction was awful for the people who lived through it, but the creation was revolutionary for the society that came after. The theory of creative destruction tells us that the fear of a technology like AI is actually a sign of economic health. It signals that a massive creation is about to happen on the other side. This is the crucial historical pattern that everyone points to when they say, "Don't worry, AI will be fine." So, if history always tells the same story, painful destruction, massive creation, why does I feel like the end? This is where the work of modern economists like Aghion and Howitt, who formalized the mathematical models of creative destruction, and Joel Mokyr, who studied the historical preconditions for exponential growth, becomes absolutely critical. They show us the limitations of the historical analogy. The fatal flaw in the historical analogy is the nature of the labor being destroyed. This is the key difference that makes this moment an unparalleled crisis. In every previous revolution, the destruction focused on muscle work or repetitive physical tasks. The Luddite machine did the weaving. The tractor did the plowing. The worker who was displaced could take their brain, their ability to reason, plan, and communicate, and apply it to the new, complex jobs of the machine age. The former weaver might learn to run a factory floor, which required a different kind of skill, but still a fundamentally human cognitive skill. The human mind was the ultimate resource that was not automated. AI, however, is targeting the very thing that made human workers adaptable: our knowledge and our cognitive skill. When an AI can write better code, summarize legal documents, generate marketing copy, diagnose patients faster, or create high-quality art more effectively than the human doing the task, it's attacking the brain work. It is replacing the knowledge worker, the person whose value was tied to their mind, not their muscle. Think about a paralegal whose job is to review thousands of legal documents. A machine can do that job better, faster, and cheaper. That paralegal is highly educated and paid well. When they are replaced, they can't just easily transition to eye mechanic because the core of their learned value complex information processing has been automated. This means the new jobs created might not be accessible to the people who were just replaced. The destruction is happening faster, and the skills needed for the creation are radically different from the skills being replaced. This creates a terrifying, almost immediate skills gap, and if we ignore it, the social structure is doomed. The old jobs will face a swift collapse, and the displaced workers will be left without a clear, accessible path to the new economy. This is a recipe for social crisis. The new jobs will be highly specific and deeply technical. AI prompters, managers, people who oversee and guide the AI, a high-level human-machine interface role. AI engineers, the highly specialized few who build the next generation of models. This is a small, elite workforce. Human-AI interface roles, jobs focused on where human connection is absolutely necessary. Teaching, high-end creative direction, therapy, elder care roles that rely on empathy and complex human interaction that a machine cannot fake. The gap between the replaced workforce, the writers, coders, accountants, and the required workforce, the AI ethicists, data scientists, and empathy specialists, is vast and dangerous. Mokyr's lesson, knowledge without understanding is a crisis. To avoid this systemic failure, we have to bring in the third piece of the economic puzzle. From economic historian Joel Mokyr. Mokyr studied what made the Industrial Revolution finally take off in Europe. After centuries of smaller, isolated inventions, Mokyr argued that before the Industrial Revolution, we had knowledge without understanding. People knew how to make stronger iron, knowledge, but they didn't understand the chemistry of carbon getting into the metal's crystalline structure, understanding. Since they didn't understand the why they couldn't make systematic compounding improvements, they hit a wall. Progress was incremental and accidental. AI today is giving us incredible knowledge. It can write a poem, generate a graph, and pass a legal exam, but it doesn't have understanding in the human sense. It is a powerful statistical parrot. The danger is that as we offload more and more cognitive tasks to AI, we start to lose the human understanding behind those tasks. Why should a student learn math when a calculator gives the answer? Why should a junior programmer learn basic coding principles when an AI writes the function perfectly? If we stop learning how to code because the AI does it perfectly, we lose the fundamental human ability to invent the next technology that might be completely non-AI. We risk hitting a civilizational wall where we can only operate the machines, but we can't truly innovate beyond them. This would be a fatal limit to human progress. Mokir's lesson is that the only way out of the AI crisis is to focus desperately on deep understanding. Education that is not just about facts or tools, but about critical thinking, scientific method, curiosity, and abstract problem solving. We have to ensure that the new generations are not just using the AI, but are capable of completely reinventing it. This is our strategic defense against stagnation. The choice: doomed workers or political failure. So let's bring this all together into the climax, the one fatal choice we face as a society. The fear that AI will destroy all jobs and lead to a permanent human recession is, based on 200 years of economic data, highly unlikely. New forms of wealth, leisure, and service will emerge. The economy will likely be okay, possibly even boom in ways we can't imagine, creating goods and services far cheaper than ever before. The real urgent crisis is not economic, it is political and social. Our choice is between two outcomes. Outcome 1, doomed workers. We allow the creative destruction process to happen too fast and too harshly. We let programmers, paralegals, and artists become the modern Luddites, displaced, abandoned, and angry. Their industries will face a rapid collapse. We will see mass unemployment, civil unrest, and a society fractured between the small elite who own the AI and the large masses who are replaced by it. The economic system won't collapse, but the social contract will be broken, leading to a long period of deep social and political instability. The destruction side of the equation will overwhelm the creation side because the people cannot move fast enough. Outcome 2, managed transition. We embrace the lesson of creative destruction's modern form. We recognize that AI is inevitable, and we stop trying to ban it, because banning it would lead to its own kind of doomsday, stagnation while other nations advance. Instead, we use the massive, unprecedented wealth generated by this new technology to build a lubricant for change, a truly robust social safety net. This means massive, free, and continuous retraining programs, not just for basic skills, but for complex, creative skills that involve human-centric problems. Stronger social safety nets and unemployment benefits, allowing people the time and security to actually learn a new trade without facing financial ruin or the absolute fear of eviction. A focus on education that builds understanding, Mokir's point, rather than just rote memorization, that AI can handle perfectly. The new technology is not our enemy. The political failure to manage the transition is the true threat. The AI is coming, and it will be devastatingly destructive to millions of livelihoods. But whether that destruction leads to a new golden age or a societal crisis that tears us apart is entirely up to the laws we pass and the safety nets we build today. We are not doomed by the technology, but we are absolutely doomed by our own lack of preparation. The economic model is clear. We must be willing to let the old industries fall, but we must not be willing to let the old workers fall with them. History proves that the new wealth is coming. Our job is to figure out how to share it and how to train everyone to participate in its creation. The Luddites were angry at the machine, but they should have been angry at a system that offered them no future. The horse and buggy industry was completely wiped out, but the world was better for it. AI is the next wave of creative destruction, but it is moving at light speed and attacking our minds. Our fatal error is waiting for the crisis to hit before we start planning. We must act now to provide the time, education, and security necessary for millions of people to jump from the collapsing old world into the brand new one. Make sure you subscribe right now so you don't miss our next deep dive into the economics of the future.